Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 337. Thank you guys for joining me. Got a really good podcast for you today. Going to pick up where we left off. And, I don't know how long I'm going to be covering Russiagate. There's new disclosures and new things that are coming out on a daily basis. Like I said, I believe that the strategy is to slow drip this. So the buildup of this scandal and the news story surrounding this scandal, that it happens organically. It happens through independent media, through podcasts, because you can't really trust mainstream media. And so I'm going to be reporting on this. I've been reporting on this for nearly a decade. I understand this scandal better than most laymen, because I've been following it and I've been paying attention to this story for so long. So, and there's still so much that I want to cover. So I'm going to be on this story for a little while. In the last podcast, we were talking about the motive behind Russiagate and what motivated all these players to get involved. I mean, you had with the new Durham annex documents that were just declassified. We know that George Soros and George Soros people were involved. Hillary Clinton, heavily involved, was running it. The Obama intelligence agencies, they're heavily involved. And those same guys that were in Obama's intelligence agencies and heading Obama's intelligence agencies were in Bush's intelligence agencies as well. There was, when Obama ran on change, you can believe it, there was no change in who was running the intelligence communities from the Bush administration to the Obama administration. You had diplomats from Australia. You had MI6 agents. There's so many players and there's so many nuances to the Russiagate story. We're talking about what the motive was. What was the motive? Was the motive just to hang dirt on Trump? Well, no. As we explained in the last podcast, in the clip that we played from Molly Hemingway, the last clip, she explained, no, it was also to defame Russia and to use the Russiagate story and the narrative that Russia hacked the election and made Trump president and denied Hillary Clinton from being president. That was all to enrage the American public against not only Donald Trump, but also against the Russian government, because that way you would be more susceptible. The public would be more susceptible to the propaganda coming out of Ukraine about Russia. If you've already, think that, that Russia is this, big problem. They've interfered in our elections. They've made Trump president and denied Hillary Clinton. You're going to be more apt to believe the other lies that we tell you about Russiagate. So it was a strategy not only to frame Trump and to frame Russia and Vladimir Putin, but also to force Trump to take an aggressive posture to kind of control his foreign policy, is using the media, using the Russia investigation and which turned into the Mueller investigation, accusing Trump of being a Russian asset. That was to guide his foreign policy and to force his foreign policy and to create tension between what could have otherwise been a great relationship. I mean, other presidents have had great relationships with Putin. Putin's been there forever. Bush had great relationships with him. Clinton had great relationship. This guy, Obama, had great relationships with him. And Trump could have too. Trump would have been more inclined to have a good relationship with Russia, but that's what they didn't want. So that is the heart of the motive. And you have to understand that. And if, you look at the reporting in the media over the last 48 to 72 hours since the Alaska summit where Putin and Trump met, You can see the media still 10 years later, nearly 10 years later, still doing the same song and dance and trying to, force Trump to take an aggressive posture towards Putin. Oh, I can't believe he shook his hand. I can't believe he put the red carpet out for him. Is what they were so angry that Trump put red carpet out for Putin and he shook his hand. I can't believe that. Again, this is them trying to guide Trump's foreign policy. This is them trying to ridicule Trump in the media, to try to force him to take an aggressive posture to basically disrupt the peace process. How is Trump, not shaking Putin's hand? How is that going to bring us closer to a peace settlement? It's not. It's not going to bring us closer to a peace settlement. But they obviously don't want the peace settlement. But all these other guys shook his hand. Biden shook his hand. Hillary Clinton had a chummy relationship with him. So did her husband. So did Obama. They all shook his hand. They were all chummy with him, smiling with him. But Trump does it. Oh, he's a traitor. He's getting played by the KGB. The great mind of the KGB agent is manipulating Trump. Trump is his stooge. Trump is his puppet. It's ridiculous. And these people are ridiculous. This is another meme that was going around. Putin, like I said, Putin's been there forever. Bush, and I've shown you the video of Bush at the dance party with him. Where they're all dancing together. Clinton, Chuck Schumer, Clinton again, Obama. I played the clips in the last podcast of Obama to Mitt Romney. Governor Romney in the 1980s called. They want their foreign policy back. The hot mic with Obama, with Dmitry Medvedev. That this is my last election. After my election, I'll have more flexibility. I can't do it now, but after the voters, the dumb voters who vote for me again, after they vote for me again and I don't have any more elections, then I can do what you guys want me to do, is what Obama told Dmitry Medvedev on a hot mic. There was no investigation into Obama. Dmitry said, I transferred this information to Vladimir. But Trump's a traitor because he shakes his hand. Do you understand? These people in our mainstream media, they're disgusting. They're disgusting. They said that Trump, that Putin was isolated before this meeting in Alaska, and Putin was isolated, and it was a big win for Putin because he's not isolated anymore. He got the photo op with the president of the United States. Isolated? What are you talking about? He's isolated. France 24. The European Union imported more Russian LNG in 2024 despite drop in gas consumption. And even though they lowered their consumption of liquefied natural gas, in last year the EU imported more Russian LNG. Does that sound like he's isolated? No, these people are clowns. The people in the media are clowns, and what they're doing is they're trying to guide Trump's foreign policy. They don't want him to have a workable relationship with Russia. They don't want him to legitimize Russia, even though the European Union is importing all this LNG. If that doesn't legitimize them, I don't understand. I don't understand. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to defame Donald Trump in the media to try to force him to have this aggressive, because obviously they don't want peace. And they didn't want peace back in 2016, 2017, when Trump came in. I mean, the war was still fresh. You didn't have, the coup until 2014. So you're 2 years down the line. It's still, we still need to help Ukraine build up their arms. At this time, they weren't sending any weapons to Ukraine. Why? What's the reason that the Obama administration in the last 2 years that they sent blankets and not weapons? Because they were Nazis. And the Congress, the Democrats in Congress, like John Conyers, and he was working with a Republican as well, but the Congress wouldn't let him send weapons because there were Nazis, because there was too many Nazis there. So that's why Obama didn't send them weapons in the last 2 years. So they didn't want Trump to come in. Trump comes in, and because they're forcing him to take this aggressive posture, Trump does send them weapons. Trump does take the aggressive posture because, of course, what is he going to do? He's going to try to work with Putin when they're in the media calling him a Russian asset. I mean, how's he going to work with Putin when they're in the media calling him that he's a Russian asset and he worked with Russia to steal the election from Hillary Clinton? Do you understand? That's why they did this, people. That's why they did this. And you can't understand anything about Russiagate without understanding that Ukraine is the linchpin. It's the Rosetta Stone to understanding this story. So President met with Zelensky in the Oval Office today. Very different meeting. Zelensky came over with his babysitters. All the EU babysitters came over with him because he couldn't come by himself because Trump was going to bully him. So he wore a suit this time, and Trump is making this is something that should be admired. This is something that all good people, even if you like Trump or not, the Bible says, Jesus Christ said that blessed are the peacemakers, because they shall be called the children of God. And Trump is making a legitimate effort, and has been from day one, making an effort to try to bring this war to a peaceful settlement. And he would have done that back in 2017 too, even before Russia went in. That was one of the things that Putin says. He says that if Biden instilled the election in 2020 with the mail-in ballots, if Biden instilled the election in 2020, this war would have never happened. And going back from 2020 to 2017, if they didn't do Russiagate and Trump could have come in and tried to negotiate a peaceful settlement, it would have been even more. It would have been a lot easier back in January of 2017 than it would have been even in 2020. In January of 2020, it would have been easier in January 2017 is what I'm saying. But Putin said that, yes, that most likely, because the Biden administration, they didn't want peace. The Biden administration is an extension of the Obama administration, and the Obama administration, they started all of this. This all started under Obama in 2014. So, of course, Biden's going to come in and have the same foreign policy as Daddy Obama. But Trump has been making a noble effort to end this war from day one. He has really been trying. People are saying, well, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He deserves it. And I don't think that is his motivation at all. I just think that this guy really does hate war that much. And this has been something that has been consistent about him even before he entered into politics, but even as he's entered into politics, being critical of Bush and Bush's aggressive foreign policy. I wanted to play this clip. This is of a press conference that Trump did in his first administration in 2019. Take a listen to what he says.
The hardest thing I have to do is signing those letters. That's the hardest thing I have to do. And each letter is different. We make each letter different. And last week I signed 5 of them for Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, 1 in Syria from 2 weeks ago. And sometimes I call the parents. Sometimes I see the parents. I go to Dover when I can, but it's so devastating for the parents that, it's so devastating. When they bring that boy or young woman out of the back of those big, powerful planes in a coffin, and the parents are there. We have people that do that. That's what they do. They work that. They accommodate everybody. That's what they do. They do an incredible job. And I said, the parents seem to be okay. I'll get there early. The parents seem to be okay. Well, actually, sir, they aren't. No, the way they're talking, they're really okay, aren't they? Sir, you never know until the back of that massive cargo plane opens up and they walk down holding a coffin with 4 or 5 great soldiers on each side of it, representing our various forces, that you never know. And then I see it, and I see people that were smiling, "Oh, Mr. President, thank you for being here, thank you for being here," and I think they're doing great. And then 20 minutes later, we'll be outside when that big plane pulls up and that door comes down, and they are walking the coffin with their boy inside this coffin with an American flag over the top, and they're walking that coffin down this ramp. And I've seen people that I thought were really incredible the way they would I didn't even understood how they could take it so well. Scream like I've never seen anything before. Sometimes they'll run to the coffin. They'll break through military barriers. They'll run to the coffin and jump on top of the coffin, crying, mothers and wives crying desperately. And this is on these endless wars that just never stop.
So that is sincere, people. That you can say what you want about Donald Trump. That's sincere. Even Bill Maher over the weekend had to admit that is a sincere belief that Donald Trump holds about war, is that war is needless, it's fruitless. It cost us not only in money, it cost us in blood. And Trump does not like war. Even Bill Maher had to talk about that over the weekend.
It's funny, I see that today is the anniversary of Woodstock. This is 56 years ago. And the hippies, what did they hate more than anything else? War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So if you're the kind of person who says, you can find some good in anybody, this would be the good in Donald Trump. He really does not like war. Thailand and Cambodia were firing at each other. Rwanda and the Congo. Most people don't even know about these. India and Pakistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He got involved in all of them. He really, he doesn't really, he wants it. Now, the way he does it, as usual, with Ukraine, the solution was, surrender.
You're an idiot, Bill Maher. He gets half of it right. Yes, he has to admit that Trump does not like war, but he didn't say anything about surrender. And he's trying to end the war, and he had to add that in there. You're doing so well, Bill Maher. But yes, it's true. Trump does not like war, and he started his campaign. And I think I have the clip here.
They lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none.
So that was when he was on the debate stage with Jeb Bush. Calls out Jeb Bush, said your brother lied. Said there was weapons of mass destruction. There were none. You got us all bogged down into this where he started, and that's how he won the nomination, I believe, is being against the foreign policy of George Bush, which Barack Obama continued, quite frankly. And he doesn't like war. He doesn't like war. And I think that is a very noble part of Donald Trump's character, that he's trying to bring peace. And he's trying to bring peace in this situation in Ukraine. Again, this was Molly Hemingway, the clip that we played in the last podcast, where she's laying out that the reason that they did Russiagate, was to force Donald Trump to take a aggressive stance towards Russia, and also to demonize Russia in the eyes of the American people. And it all had to do with Ukraine.
Never have the media accurately understood the underlying issues with the war with Ukraine. I mean, this is something that goes back decades. Putin has had a long history of talking about, how this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Trump had a very different posture toward Russia. And of course, we also had the breaking news over the last 2 weeks.
Trump had a very different posture towards Russia than the Obama administration. He was going to come in and make peace.
Talking about, how this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Trump had a very different posture toward Russia. And of course, we also had the breaking news over the last 2 weeks with all of it coming out about the Russia collusion hoax and how that was completely invented, not just by Obama's spy chiefs, but it was handled by the media to increase tensions between Russia and the United States.
Absolutely.
We've had all sorts of news breaking about how that hoax went down, how many people knew that they were lying when they falsely claimed that Russia had interfered in the election to help Trump. I mean, this is a global power that you don't want to have lies being told about. And our media were engaged in nothing but lies on that topic for years. They won Pulitzers for telling lies about the Russia collusion.
They're still doing it. They were doing it all over the weekend. If you watch these guys, these clowns all over the weekend as they reported on Trump trying to make peace with Russia, they're still doing it. The media in this country is shameful, people. They're completely shameful. I have a few clips of these clowns from the Sunday shows, but it's just absolutely ridiculous. So Trump said that he was going to walk out if he didn't get a ceasefire. Why didn't he walk out? Asking why didn't he walk out? Because he's trying to make a peace deal, you idiots. He didn't walk out. He didn't get a ceasefire with this clown either, with Zelensky when he met with him the first time. You guys don't remember this? He was trying to get a ceasefire. If you don't remember the very first time Zelensky came without all of his babysitters, he first met with Chris Murphy, who was there at the beginning with John McCain during Euromaidan. So Zelensky comes over. This is the first time in this Oval Office meeting when he goes back and forth with Vance. Zelensky comes over, and remember that Donald Trump and his administration had already, the week before they met with this guy, they had met with Russia in Saudi Arabia, and they had already worked out something. I don't know what they worked out in that meeting with the Russian diplomats in Saudi Arabia. But again, Trump has been trying. He's been working to negotiate peace from day one, from the beginning. He hasn't been successful from day one, but he's been working at it from day one. And he had the Russian diplomats. And remember that was all the big the media. Oh, I can't believe that he's meeting with Russia without Zelensky. When he met with the Russian diplomats in Saudi Arabia, they wanted Zelensky there as well. They can't meet alone. And what Trump's trying to do is trying to meet with one side and see where this side's at. What are your concerns? Then he goes back and he meets with Zelensky. What are your concerns? Then he goes back to the other side. And before you have the trilateral meeting, that, you meet with each side and see. I mean, there's no reason to have the trilateral meeting if you don't know, if you can't work it out. So you have the meeting with the Russian diplomats in Saudi Arabia. And who knows what was said? Maybe Russia at that time had tentatively agreed to a ceasefire. I don't know. But I know that the week later, when Zelensky comes, Trump's really trying to get him to enter into a ceasefire, which I believe that Russia and Saudi Arabia said, if you can get Zelensky to enter into a ceasefire, we'll enter into a ceasefire. I don't have any evidence that deal was made, but I believe that deal was made in Saudi Arabia. So he comes over, and then Zelensky, after meeting in Saudi Arabia, and that was all the controversy that all the media was spinning, is that Trump's team is meeting with the Russians without Zelensky, that Zelensky needs to be there in Saudi Arabia too. So Zelensky wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. They meet with the Russians. They come out and they say, we had a very fruitful and productive meeting with Russia. All right, let's see where Zelensky is. So bring Zelensky over to, this is the first time, bring Zelensky over to the United States. The very first thing Zelensky does before he goes to the White House, it goes and meets with Chris Murphy, Amy Klobuchar, all these Democrats that put gas in his tank, and then he goes over to the White House all hot. He comes in hot. And Trump's trying to get him to enter into a ceasefire, and he doesn't want to enter into a ceasefire. And now they're saying, oh, because you didn't get Russia to agree to a ceasefire, then you should have walked out, that your efforts were fruitless. These people are clowns.
You're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
Ask our people. Ask our people if they want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. We'll do a ceasefire only with security guarantees, is what he says. And we're not doing a ceasefire. That's what he said in the Oval Office to the president last time. We're not doing a ceasefire. And then I think it was a week later, Trump cut off the weapons, and then Russia takes the Kirk's region back and starts advancing. And it's like, okay, ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Russia's been trying to get a ceasefire for over a year, people. Over a year. Look at this Reuters article, February 13th, 2024. Putin suggests a ceasefire and tries to get a ceasefire under the Biden administration, the Biden administration. Exclusive. Putin suggested. Putin's suggestion of Ukraine's ceasefire rejected by the United States. United States answered for Zelensky, says no ceasefire. The Biden administration answered for Zelensky. Putin says, hey, let's do a ceasefire. Back in February 2024, the Biden administration answered for Zelensky, said no ceasefire. No ceasefire. And now they want, Trump to walk out of the room because he didn't get a ceasefire with Putin in his first face-to-face meeting. It's ridiculous. Another thing I want to talk about is this recent poll from the Pew Research Center. All right, so I'm suspicious about this poll. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm suspicious about any one poll. I'm telling you. I mean, that's why when I go to to look at Trump's approval rating, and there's some polls that have Trump at 54%. There's some polls that have him down in the 30s. I mean, there was a poll before the election last year that said that Kamala Harris is going to win Iowa by 4 points. I mean, the polls can say any one poll. So I'd like to see multiple polls and test this, because frankly, I don't believe this at all. But this is a Pew Research poll that came out on Thursday, the day before the Friday meeting in Alaska. And I know that it takes time to do polls. This poll was already in the works, but I find it interesting that it comes out just the day before this meeting in Alaska with Trump. But how Americans' view of Trump administration approach to the Ukraine-Russia war. And again, Pew Research came out on Thursday. Here's Harry Eaton. I wanted him to explain a little bit of this poll, and I want to talk about it.
Yeah, what a big change from where we were at the beginning of the Trump administration. GOP, the U.S. gives too much support to Ukraine. Back in February, the plurality, 47%, said yes, the U.S. in fact gives too much support to Ukraine. Republicans did not like that. But look at where we are now. Look at this. No takes the cake at 46%. We have had an inverse of the position.
So this is why I need to see more polling rather than just one poll. Because why would all these America First Republicans who have been critical of Ukraine aid, I mean, going back to the Biden administration and critical of sending all this money to Ukraine and why would all of a sudden all of these Republicans switch to start favoring more aid to Ukraine and start supporting? This makes and this is why I want to see more polling. I don't think that I'm going to go with this story just because of this one Pew Research poll. This is a poll of about 3,500 people. I want to see more polling because I don't understand this. I don't understand why all of these Republican voters are switching over, if this poll is true, switching over to now supporting Ukraine and more aid to Ukraine. So, and everybody is citing this poll. So this, again, if this poll is being used, people are in the news are citing this poll and it's being used to pressure Donald Trump. Everyone in the news is saying there's new polling that Donald Trump supporters support more aid to Ukraine now. So again, this poll is being used to apply pressure to Trump.
Support to Ukraine. Republicans did not like that. But look at where we are now. Look at this. No takes the cake at 46%. We have had an inverse of the positions. The Republican Party has shifted at least a little bit.
The Republican Party has shifted.
Now all of a sudden they don't believe that, in fact, the U.S. gives too much support to Ukraine.
So can you imagine, Trump at home watching this? So they're trying to manipulate. I mean, Who knows? I'm not going to say that this poll's not accurate, but I just want to see some more polling on this because I'm not buying this, that the Republican Party has shifted towards now supporting more aid to Ukraine.
Shifted at least a little bit on Ukraine, and now all of a sudden they don't believe that, in fact, the U.S. gives too much support to Ukraine, which is very much unlike what we saw in February. Rarely do I see poll numbers like this. You read,
listen to what Harry Eaton is saying. Rarely do I see poll numbers like this. I mean, answer the question? Why is there such a major shift? What happened to make all these people just all of a sudden say that, yeah, we want to support more aid to Ukraine? Where did this shift come from?
They don't believe that, in fact, the U.S. gives too much support to Ukraine, which is very much unlike what we saw in February. Rarely do I see poll numbers like this. You read the blogosphere, you read X. You might think that Republicans think that we're way too much in Ukraine's camp, but Republicans at large no longer believe that.
And on the issue,
based on this Pew Research poll of 3,500 people. I just wanted to make you aware of that when you hear people talking about new polling where Republicans are supporting more aid to Ukraine. They're talking specifically about this Pew Research poll that came out last Thursday. Some more polling I want to tell you about is Gallup, and this came out August 7th. So this was about 2 weeks ago, and this new Gallup poll, and this is a poll about people in Ukraine. Gallup went and polled people in Ukraine and their support for the war. And it's crazy because if you believe this Pew Research poll and that opinion is shifting here in the United States and more people here in the United States want the war to continue, which if you keep funding the war, then keep putting gas on the fire, then that's what you want. You want the war to continue. So what you're telling me in this Pew Research poll is that more people in the United States now support putting more gas on the fire and keeping the war going. At the same time, this Gallup poll is saying the people there in Ukraine, they're done with the war. The people there in Ukraine, they want the war to end. The people there that are on the front lines whose sons and husbands are getting conscripted and that are dying in this war, those people, new polling shows that they don't want the war anymore. And this Gallup poll came out 2 weeks ago. Ukraine's support for war effort collapses. Ukrainian public sours on Washington, loses hope for quick NATO accession. Here is a clip that goes into that Gallup poll. Take a listen.
Meanwhile, a new opinion poll is suggesting that support for the war effort among Ukrainians has drastically declined in recent months. According to these latest numbers, 69% of Ukrainians now favour a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible.
69% of Ukrainians, according to this Gallup poll, now say that we want a negotiated settlement as soon as possible. That's what Trump's doing. That's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to reach a negotiated settlement, but you guys are crying that he's shaking his hand and putting out red carpet for him. And 69% of Ukrainians, the people that are on the front lines and dying and having their husbands and their children conscripted and they're dying, 69% now say we want a negotiated settlement. Exactly what Trump is trying to do.
Of Ukrainians now favour a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible, while only 24% support continuing.
Only 24% of Ukrainians support continuing the war, putting more gas on the fire. I just found that's interesting. It's interesting. And this poll makes sense to me. This poll makes sense to me right here. Because these people, I want you to look at some of this video of people being forced to go to the front line and being, grabbed from the streets and conscripted in Ukraine. Take a look at some of this stuff. It's crazy.
Far away, freedom calls, like a burning flame.
Yeah, you're going to war. You're going to the front lines. Look at this. Dragging people off the streets. This is what's going on in Ukraine. This is what's going on. Here's some more. This guy. His mom, this is his mother saying, no, don't take my boy. No, your boy's going to the front lines. This is what's going on in Ukraine. He's screaming. Listen to this guy screaming. No, I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to the meat market. You're putting him in the van. You're going to war. That's what's going on in Ukraine. So this poll makes sense to me. This Gallup poll makes sense to me. Here's another one. This guy forced to go to the front lines, being conscripted. Look at the fear. I want you to look at the fear on this guy's face, and they're forcing him in this van. Look at this guy. No, I don't want to go to the front lines. Oh, you're going to the front lines for Zelensky. I have more. Look at this guy. This guy's just riding his bike down the street, and he is hunted. They're hunting him, and they let's watch what happens. Let's watch what happens. This guy is being conscripted, and he's going to the front lines. This is what's happening in Ukraine. Just pushed him off the bike. Van pulls up, grabs him. You're going to the front lines. Yep, you're going to war. You're going to war now. So this poll makes sense to me. That only 24% of Ukrainians support keeping the war going. And I wonder who these 24% are. I got an idea of who they are. People like Lindsey Graham here. Lindsey Graham, listen to what this ghoul says. This is what's going on here in this country. The people that support keeping the war going, they're ghoulish, just like Lindsey Graham here.
As long as we help Ukraine with the weapons they need and the economic support, they will fight to the last person.
They'll fight to the last person. They'll fight to the last person. These people being conscripted, do they look like they're ready to fight to the last person, Lindsey Graham? You ghoul? These people are disgusting. So the big sticking point into reaching a peaceful settlement and negotiating a peaceful settlement is two things. It's these 5 regions, but it's really 4 regions that are being debated. I don't think that there's anyone who is still believing that Crimea will ever be part of Ukraine again. If you believe that Crimea is ever going to be part of Ukraine again, then you're a fool. You're an idiot. So it's really not Crimea, but it's the Kherson region, the Zaporozhye region, the Donetsk region, and Luhansk region. These 4 regions are the regions that they're already Russia, quite frankly. They were annexed by Russia in 2022. And when Russia annexed these regions in 2022, Putin said that these regions are never going to not be Russia, that these regions are always going to be Russia. And this is a big sticking point for even the Ukrainians that, we just looked at the Gallup poll, 69 or 69%, almost 70% say that they want the war to reach a negotiated settlement. Even if you go deeper into that poll from Gallup, they say, well, if it means giving up land, the numbers drop a little bit because it's a big sticking point for them in giving up the land. The land's gone. Like I just told you, Russia annexed this land in 2022 and at the big celebration when he finally annexed. And when I say finally, because these 2 regions, Lugansk and Donetsk, they had elections and declared their independence in 2014 and went to Moscow and tried to get Putin to annex them back in 2014. And he said no. So when he annexed them in 2022, it was him finally saying there's no way to reach a peaceful settlement. We're going in and we're annexing these regions. 8 years later, in 2022, he annexed them. But these regions requested to be annexed in 2014 right away, just like Crimea was annexed in 2014. They wanted to be the people. That's what the people wanted. But many in Ukraine, it's a sticking point in losing that land. Take a listen.
A recent poll found that nearly 70% of Ukrainians now want a negotiated peace deal. That's up from just over 20% at the beginning of the invasion. Quite simply, the Ukrainians are exhausted and they've taken hundreds of thousands of casualties. But the devil is really in the details, because some Ukrainians say that handing over swaths of land to Russia permanently, that is redrawing lines on the map, is simply not a price they are willing to pay. And in fact, President Volodymyr Zelensky has said it would be unconstitutional. It would probably also be untenable for him.
Unconstitutional? What are you talking about? Was it constitutional in the way that you got rid of Yanukovych? What are you talking about? Was it constitutional, the way that you staged a coup d'etat in 2014 with Nazis? It's ridiculous.
Hundreds of thousands of casualties. But the devil is really in the details, because some Ukrainians say that handing over swaths of land to Russia permanently, that is redrawing lines on the map, is simply not a price they are willing to pay. And in fact, President Volodymyr Zelensky has said it would be unconstitutional. It would probably also be politically untenable for him, because some here would see it as a capitulation or simply as politically foolish. On top of that, Ukraine and its European allies are fearful that sacrificing Ukrainian territory to Russia would set a dangerous precedent, essentially rewarding Vladimir Putin for invading Ukraine. And perhaps
so that's a narrative that's going around, is that if they allow Russia to keep these 5 regions, then it's rewarding Putin and Russia for invading Ukraine. That's a narrative. That's propaganda. That is an absolute lie. What are the people who live in Luhansk, what do they want? Does it matter what the people who live here and have lived here forever? Does it matter what they want? Does it matter what the people in Donetsk, what they want? The people who live there, the citizens. Zaporozhye, the people who live there. Kherson, the people who live there, what do they want? The people who live there. It's not rewarding Vladimir Putin if he gets to keep this land, because the people who live there, they want to be part of Russia. They want to be part of Russia. This was a interview that CNN did, or let's listen to Ursula real quick and Ursula repeats this same line about if we allow Putin to keep this land, and it's rewarding him for invading Ukraine. It's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous narrative.
With regards to any territorial questions in Ukraine, our position is clear. International borders cannot be changed by force. These are decisions to be made by Ukraine and Ukraine alone.
So it should be made by Ukraine and Ukraine alone. So does that mean that yes, that the lines cannot be drawn by force, but that's one precedent saying that, and one narrative saying that Russia is just taking this land. But how about a very common precedent of people declaring their independence? How many lines have been redrawn on maps on this planet because people have won their independence, fought for their independence, and won their independence? That's not Russia seizing the land by force. That's a people who live there. A very good example is the United States of America. This is in our Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary. What happened in 2014 in Kiev made it necessary for us to dissolve the political bands which have connected us to another, and assume among the powers of this earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. That the people who live here, they're entitled to declare their independence and to separate from the rest of Ukraine. And it's not Russia taking them by force. Like I said, the Donbass region, they requested Russia annex them. It's not that Russia's taking them by force. In 2014, they went to Russia and they requested, Putin, will you annex us? Just like what happened in Texas. After Texas won their independence from Mexico, Texas delegations went to Washington, D.C., and they asked Washington, will you annex us? Now, Washington didn't annex them immediately because they didn't want to exacerbate the tensions between the United States and Mexico at that time. And that's the exact reason why Putin refused to annex the Donbass region, even though they requested to be annexed back in 2014 after they declared their independence and voted for their independence. It's not Russia taking these regions by force and them being rewarded. It's the people who live there wanting to be part of Russia. This was an interview that CNN did with this Ukrainian woman, and listen to what she says.
This is very important that he mentioned this, because when we are talking about trading the lands, we actually are talking about trading people. These lands are actually inhabited by Ukrainians, by civilians.
No, these lands, so what she says is when you're talking about swapping lands, you're talking about swapping people. And these lands, the lands in these disputed regions that are being disputed, she's saying that these lands are inhabited by Ukrainians. Well, these people in these lands don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore. They're Russian-speaking Ukrainians, and you tried to outlaw their language, lady. You tried to outlaw their language. They don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore. And again, Vladimir Putin annexed those regions back in 2022. He annexed all 4 of those regions. Each one of these men represent one of those 4 regions. And Vladimir Putin said when they had this celebration, he gave the speech. Now these guys look like Vladimir Putin is taking them by force. Look at the smiles on their faces. Does it look like Vladimir Putin is taking these regions by force? These people look pretty happy to be being forced to join Russia. No, they're not being forced to join Russia. They want to be Russian. They're Russian-speaking people. And Ukraine tried to outlaw their language after staging a coup in 2014. These people want to be part of Russia, Ursula. Russia's not taking them by force. They declared their independence, and they asked Russia to annex them. That's something completely different than the narrative that you people are trying to lie, the propaganda you're trying to use to lie to the world who don't know this stuff, and say that Russia is rolling in and taking these regions by force. No, these people want to be part of Russia. They want to be part of Russia. They were happy. They were excited that Russia finally annexed them, especially the regions of the Donbass, which had been requesting that Russia annex them going back to 2014. I mean, this was the election in 2010 between Yulia Tymoshenko and Viktor Yanukovych. When Viktor Yanukovych won, you can see the bluer the regions, the more aligned with Russia they are. These people want to be part of Russia. They don't want to be part of Ukraine, where you're outlawing their language. And if Ukraine cared so much about the people in Kiev, their fellow Ukrainian citizens, or not Kiev, but in Crimea, if the people in Ukraine cared so much, why did they cut off the water? Why did they put a dam and cut off the only source of fresh water that Crimea had after Crimea was annexed by Russia? If you care so much about these people, your fellow Ukrainians, why would you cut off their only source to fresh water? Why would you try to outlaw their language if you care so much about your fellow Ukrainians? No, these people are divided. They're divided. These people in these regions that have been annexed by Russia, they don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore. They want to be part of Russia. This is Crimea after the referendum in Crimea, and they tell you that Putin invaded Crimea and took Crimea by force. Do these people look like they're being taken by force? They're waving flags. They're smiling.
Crimeans voted overwhelmingly on Sunday to break away from Ukraine and join Russia in a referendum the West condemned as illegal. With half the ballots counted, 95.5% of Crimea residents voted to break away from Ukraine, according to local officials.
They're happy. They're waving flags. They're smiling because the referendum. But this is not them being annexed. This is the referendum for them to declare their independence first. There's a process. They have to declare their independence and then they're annexed. So this is them celebrating after the referendum, which the West called illegal. I don't know why it was illegal. And that's the other lie, too. They keep telling you, oh, this is about democracy. We have to defend democracy. We have to defend them. This is democracy right here. This is democracy. These people voting to declare their independence and to be annexed by Russia. This is democracy. Zelensky hasn't, when's the last time Zelensky had an election? And that's why this was a post that Elon Musk put out. I think it was like 2 years ago, and he had to delete it. He ended up deleting this post. It was a poll. This was shortly after he had acquired Twitter X, and he put out this poll about a peace agreement in Ukraine. How can we reach peace in Ukraine? Elon Musk. Redo the elections in all of the annexed regions under UN supervision. Bring in the UN. Now, why couldn't they bring in the UN back in 2014 when they did the referendums in Crimea and in the Donbass, their independence referendums that they did in 2014? Why couldn't they bring in the UN? Because if you remember the phone call, the leaked phone call from Victoria Nuland, and she's having the conversation there with Ambassador Pyatt, she says, we got the UN. We got Sun Young Moon and the other guy. We got the UN on our side. The UN is going to help us glue this thing together. The UN is helping us stage the coup. So, of course, the UN's not going to go and monitor these elections for independence in the Donbass region and in the Crimea region, because the UN, like Victoria Nuland said, is on our side. They're helping us stage the coup. So you're not going to get the UN to come and monitor these elections. And without the UN and international monitors, then that gives you legitimacy to say that these referendums were not valid, that this isn't democracy because Russia was there or whatever. Okay, so Elon Musk, in his peace agreement, Elon Musk tweets out, let's redo the elections. Redo the elections again. And this can be part of the agreement today, the negotiated agreement. All right. And if Russia made this agreement, they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't accept it because they know what the deal is. They never accept that agreement because they know if these people get to vote and the votes, legitimately monitored by international election monitors, then they know that this is what's going to happen. That these people are going to vote to be part of Russia and not Ukraine because they want to be part of Russia. But this was Elon Musk's plan. First of all, let's redo the elections. Okay. You say the elections that happened in 2014, that they weren't valid and that for some reason that's not democracy. Okay. Let's bring the UN in and bring in, other international monitors and let's do the elections again. Let's do the elections again. Russia leaves if that's the will of the people. That's democracy. This Elon Musk. Very sensible plan that he had to delete this because if you can see down at the bottom, you have almost 3 million people who voted on this when he deleted it, and 60% said no to this deal. So redo the elections in the annexed regions. If the people don't want Russia, Russia leaves. Crimea is formally part of Russia as it has been going back to Catherine the Great, 1783. And Khrushchev's mistake to give it to Ukraine, especially with Russia having one of their most important naval bases there in Sevastopol. I mean, that's Russia. That's not Ukraine, and it's never, ever. Crimea is never, ever going to be Ukraine. So that was the second part. Redo the elections in these annexed regions. Crimea, formerly part of Russia as it's been since Catherine the Great. Ensure that the Ukrainians can't cut off the water, the only fresh water supply that the people in Crimea have, our fellow Ukrainian citizens that we care so much about. So we ensure that they don't cut off the water on their fellow citizens again in Crimea. And then Ukraine remains neutral and is not part of NATO. And Elon Musk was excoriated for this poll, for even the having the audacity to even put out a poll like this. He was excoriated. And you see, this is the comment from one of Ukraine's foreign ministers. F off is my very diplomatic reply to you, Elon. F off. And everybody knows that this is going to be that some form of these 4 bullet points are going to be the final deal. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. And honestly, I mean, you guys, you people need to be honest, man. You need to be honest. Marco Rubio, how much time do I have? Got about 5 minutes. So Marco Rubio, I thought it was very interesting because he went on all the Sunday shows yesterday, and not a single person asked him about the Senate report on Russian meddling that when he was the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they confirmed that Russia meddled in the election. And now these new disclosures are coming out from Tulsi Gabbard, and the whole Russiagate narrative is being blown up. I just think that it's interesting that this guy went on 3 Sunday shows yesterday. He was on with this dingbat. He was on with this dingbat, and he was on with this dingbat. These women, I'm going to tell you right now, these women are embarrassing to the profession of journalism. Each and every one of these women. And this is like the characters from The View hosting very important political Sunday shows. Each and every one of them are just, I mean, completely. Marco Rubio just destroyed this one. He absolutely destroyed her. But none of them, not a single one of them asked about the new Tulsi Gabbard disclosures that are coming out and declassifications coming out about Russiagate. And they all make the case that, well, Marco Rubio was the head of the Intelligence Committee when the Intelligence Committee confirmed that Russia did the hacking. Well, why don't you guys ask him about it? I thought that was very interesting. But he was on with these guys, and they did talk a lot about what went on in these meetings on Friday and what was anticipated in the meetings today with Zelensky. This is him talking to Martha. Take a listen.
Can you name any concessions that Vladimir Putin made during this meeting? Have any
I wouldn't name them on your program.
Have any concessions
I wouldn't name
been
them
asked?
on your program. Why would I do that?
Where is the
Well,
pressure?
of course, because you can't have a peace agreement. No, you can't have a peace agreement unless both sides give and get. You can't have a peace agreement unless both sides make concessions. That's a fact. That's true in virtually any negotiation. If not,
so Rubio, she asked, were there any concessions that Russia made? And it was funny because I was watching this, and I'd already watched Witkoff on CNN with Jake Tapper. And so Martha's asking, were there any concessions that Russia made in this meeting from Friday? And Marco Rubio says, yeah, they did make concessions, but I'm not going to tell you about it. Why would I say what the concessions they made, here on national TV? Well, what's his name? Witkoff was on with Tapper, and he did announce what the concessions were that Russia made in the meeting on Friday, and they're very significant. Take a listen.
President Trump called this an extremely productive meeting and said many points were agreed to. You were in the room. Can you give us 2 specific points that were agreed to?
We agreed, Jake. First of all, thank you for having me, and good morning. We agreed to robust security guarantees that I would describe as game-changing. We didn't think that we were anywhere close to agreeing to Article 5 protection from the United States.
Wow.
In legislative enshrinement.
That's significant. That is significant right there. That Witkoff, he lets it out that Russia agreed to Article 5 type of security guarantees. And you don't know Article 5 is what NATO is. I mean, you don't have NATO without Article 5. You're saying that basically Russia is saying that I don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. And this whole thing has been about NATO pushing up against their borders, and I don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. But to allow, and Russia, with Vladimir Putin there in the meeting on Friday, they said that we would allow these Article 5 type of security guarantees, the same security guarantees that Zelensky's been demanding from day one, that we won't do a ceasefire unless we have security guarantees. We want security guarantees. And Witkoff, he admits to Jake Tapper that Russia agreed to security guarantees, and it's hugely significant. This is the last clip we'll play. We'll listen to Bata talk about the significance of Russia agreeing to those security guarantees. Take a listen.
I think that we've really missed the main headline of Friday's summit. If you remember when President Trump and Zelensky met in the Oval Office, Zelensky was asking for security guarantees. And that really seemed like it was off the table at the
Absolutely.
time. I think President Trump thought that this would be just a non-starter for Putin. I thought so as well. What we learned on Friday was that Putin, probably under the guidance of Donald Trump, is willing to consider security guarantees for Ukraine in exchange for the territorial swaps, which, Rachel, are going to happen. Right. And if you recall, at the start of this war, Crimea was already part of Russia, and the Donbas region was not actually part of Ukraine. There was a civil war there, right. And actually the residents there were hoping that Putin would come. They were very against the Kiev government.
Absolutely.
And so, that status quo when the war started, I think, is going to have to be the contours in which this war ends, of course, with Ukraine not being part of NATO. But what Trump accomplished on Friday, getting Putin to say out loud,
it's a huge accomplishment.
Ukraine's security concerns as legitimate. This was earth-shattering.
That's a huge accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment. And all you heard over the news all for the last 72 hours is that Trump didn't accomplish anything because he didn't get a ceasefire. He got Russia to agree to security Article 5 type of security guarantees for the regions that he's already annexed, where the people don't want to be part of Ukraine anyway, people. So we're going to get back into Russiagate on Friday. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.